Hello, fellow Opus creator, and welcome back to the Mindful Opus podcast. Today's episode is really special. It's our very first interview, and I could not imagine a better guest to begin with. I'm joined by James Patterson, a fantastic horn player with the Oslo Philharmonic, for a conversation that dives deep into what many feel may be impossible, feeling good in the audition process. James shares how mindfulness first became a steadying force for him during school, helping him manage stress and find balance beyond the practice room. But the heart of this episode lies in his transformation. From feeling trapped in all or nothing thinking to completely reimagining how he approached auditions, with his well-being front and center. We talk about what it actually means to decide to feel good in the audition process, and how that one choice reshaped everything. By rebuilding his audition process from the inside out, James not only found more curiosity and self-acceptance, he also won 2 orchestral jobs back to back. Whether you're preparing for an audition, teaching students, or already in the thick of your professional life, this conversation offers so much wisdom and a reminder of what's possible when we shift from grind to kind and learn to trust ourselves again. I'm really excited about this one. And I do have to say, this gentleman also happens to be my brother. So you will be hearing some giggling, some lightheartedness amidst the lengthy episode. So I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Opus podcast. I'm your host, Jo Zakany, violist with the Cleveland Orchestra, yoga teacher, and coach for classical musicians. Here, we switch from grind to kind in our artistic process so that artists like you can avoid burnout, ditch performance anxiety, and create a thriving, healthy life on and off stage. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Hello, fellow Opus creator, and welcome to episode 3 of the Mindful Opus podcast. You can probably hear I'm beaming, and that is because my very first guest today is someone who just makes me smile. He makes everyone that he meets smile, and he's just the best, and I happen to be related to him, which, lucky me. I've gotten to be this amazing human's older sister for his whole life. And, and it's just been a true delight. So please welcome my brother, James Patterson. Hello, sweet human. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. This is so fun. Thank you
Hi.
for being my very first interview. It was the easiest, truly the easiest thing to think of you first. Because again, this first season is about well-being performance as a high-achieving classical
Mm.
musician. And you are the definition of it. Like, you have so much wisdom to share when it comes to what to do, what not to do. So we're going to get into all of that. But why don't you start with telling our amazing listeners who you are and a little bit about what you do?
I can do that. Well, I'm honored to be your first guest.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah. I am currently sitting in my apartment in Oslo, Norway, on a rainy day. I live here with my wife, Veronica, and I work in Oslo Philharmonic as in Norwegian, it is Tredjestilling,
Ooh,
which a rough translation is like third first. So I play third horn, sometimes first horn.
amazing.
Um, I am 31 years old. If that means anything.
Oh, I love that. That means that now I have to say how old I am. I'm exactly 10 years older than you.
Who's
Thanks for
counting?
that. Well, amazing. And, you did not start your life in Oslo. It's definitely where you have landed. And it's been such an amazing journey, I think, how you got to where you are. And one of the first things I wanted to talk about, because I think where you landed has so much to do with this thing that actually bonded us many years ago at this point, but it was our mutual connection to mindfulness.
Hmm.
So, a little bit about mindfulness, the way I look at it, it was actually a core tenet in my well-being training when I was doing my certification with Duke Integrative Medicine. Like their well-being wheel, at the center of it is mindfulness, which is
Mm,
just fascinating because then it kind of goes like hand in hand with, is mindfulness truly an important value in one's well-being, right?
mm,
So, and the way I look at mindfulness or define it loosely is that it's the ability to be a witness to your present experience as opposed to just being completely caught in it and
mm.
meeting as much of the moment non-judgmentally, borrowing a little bit from John Kabat-Zinn on that one. So that's kind of like where I want to start a little bit and just get your take, or really, when did you actually, because I don't know this. I know you very well, but I don't actually know this. When did mindfulness come into your world? When did you first discover this kind of philosophy mindset tool?
I guess the first time was when I was studying in New York, and that was probably 2014, 15, something like that. And the craziness of New York. I'm for all you listeners who don't know me so well, I'm from Seattle, so I grew up surrounded by nature, and so moving to New York was quite an extreme change. And so I found The Power of Now, a book by
Mm,
Eckhart Tolle, whatever.
Tolle.
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 Um,
He's French. He's
is
not.
he French?
No, he's not.
By Mr. Eckhart. And so
Mhm.
that kind of started my journey into understanding a little bit more about like not stressing about the past or the present, but being, in the moment. And that was in my one of my last years. I think it was maybe my third year, second to last year at Juilliard. And then I started kind of getting into it around that time when I was also starting to rock climb. And with that, I started doing some like yoga, and it kind of all started happening around that time, which was, I guess, a little almost 10 years ago at this point. And then when I was in Bloomington, where I did my first master's degree, I took a mindfulness for musicians course, and that's what really kind of got me thinking of applying it more to performance and stuff like that.
First off, amazing that IU had that course. That's
Yeah,
incredible. Definitely something that I think all schools should have in some form.
I agree.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said because I want to know what the correlation was between, you said rock climbing and mindfulness and yoga. Like, how did
Mm.
mindfulness kind of bring all of those together? Like, what was the tie behind that?
Well, the thing I've always been like active, playing sports, playing soccer, and like I said, being in nature. So I found when I was like, especially rock climbing, it kind of the place I went in New York was you kind of walked through a gym, down the stairs, across the hallway, up the stairs, open the door, like a maze to get there. And it was just a small room. And so when I went in this room, I was kind of completely cut out from the crazy outside hustle and bustle of New York. And I found when I was there, like with rock climbing, especially, it's so physical, but also so mental, where you're like trying to solve these problems. You're trying to figure out how you're supposed to climb this route. So I felt that kind of fully took my attention both physically and mentally. And then yoga is basically, like moving meditation in a way. It's always with your breath. It's always with kind of being aware where the tension is, and so on and so forth. So those kind of were all connected, yeah, at the same time.
Wow. I don't think I put two and two together on that when you were going through that. And it's interesting you say it was about solving problems because this is something that is so commonly difficult for classical musicians, actually, is the process of solving problems, right? Like we're in
Mm,
a practice room day in and day out, mostly by ourselves, and we come across something that doesn't work.
mm,
And how we solve that problem can be a varied experience depending on how you approach said problem,
mm,
right? So, going off on a slight tangent, but I just think it's interesting, like that you were able to kind of mindfully practice problem solving in rock climbing.
mm.
and you couldn't really judge yourself too harshly in the moment because you're super focused,
Hmm.
which that's something I see so commonly with my clients. It's something I've experienced. I know you've experienced. Can you say a little bit more about like mindfully problem solving? Like maybe that relation between rock climbing and like I guess I'm assuming it had an effect on your musical
Mm,
problem solving, but
yeah,
is that a correct hunch or
that is a very correct hunch.
oh good. I'm learning
Uh,
so much today.
no, I felt, like how people practice is something that's not really taught so often. And everyone, has different approaches to practicing. Some people can just sit down, look at a super complicated thing and just kind of do it. But I found when I was starting to rock climb that if I would kind of get the beginning part okay, and then I would fall kind of on the third or fourth move, then I instantly kind of hopped back on the wall at that spot and figured out how to do that exact move. And then I would
Mm,
try to do that, third move in this case from the beginning. And that's how we should practice, or at least how I found I had to practice on my instrument as well. If I was doing an excerpt or something and I'd play the opening and 5 measures in, I'd mess something up. Then I'd have to practice that 5 measures and do a little bit before and a little bit after and kind of incorporate that new learning into the entirety of the excerpt. So or whatever piece it
right.
is.
Yeah, instead of being like, okay, I have to start from like all the, I mean, you used a part in the beginning, but like you just get back up to where you goofed
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like there wasn't a lot of opportunity for self-judgment in both yoga and rock climbing,
Mm,
right? Like with the moving meditation of yoga, it's about being present. And I love that that's how you described it because that's very much how I look at it as well. It's like
mm,
a forced movement into being truly present. And in case anyone's confused about like what we keep talking about being present, we often live in our thoughts. We are often thinking about what went wrong in the past, what could go wrong in the future. So a lot of our day-to-day existence is rooted in like the movie playing in our mind. And that movie can be really intensely stressful. So you
mm,
could be sitting doing something that's not stressful, like let's say sipping a cup of coffee. But if you're ruminating about like a concert you had last night that went terribly poorly and you're just hyper analyzing it, you are stressed,
mm.
right? But the moment you
Yeah.
are actually sitting in is not stressful.
Yeah.
Like I remember that being a really sort of like an epiphany when I realized that like most of my thoughts are living in the past or the future. And
Mm,
that if I just like paid attention, mostly things were fine in the present moment.
yeah.
So all that to go back to what you were saying, like it was a forced moment of being present with, it doesn't sound like there was a lot of judgment if you fell off the rock, right? Or something like that. It's sort of just like,
No. I knew that like the reason I fell also was that I was like pushing my limits. I was trying to, do something that was challenging for me. And I think that the like kind of openness to the challenge as well is why the judgment wasn't there, if that makes sense. If you're falling off of something and you're like so invested in succeeding in it from the get-go, then you're not really open to actually solving the problem, to like learn from the problem.
oh my God, I hope people can pause and just rewind for 10 seconds. That was amazing. It's basically you're saying like it's if you're too focused on the actual outcome versus the problem solving,
Hmm.
then the outcome is not really gonna happen in a way, right? Is that kind of what
Yeah.
you, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the kind of cliche, it's all about the journey, not the destination. But in that sense, if you're trying to like grow with it, to grow with whatever you're trying to learn, then you might as well like learn while you're growing.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I know that this was supportive outside of school as well, but it sounds like that's really like where the birth of these concepts was like
Mm,
in Juilliard in college, really busy city, and you had to find a way to manage your mind using multiple forms of mindfulness. It was the
mm,
book, It was a physical experience of rock climbing. It was the physical, quiet meditation movement of yoga. And I guess I want to jump a little bit because this I know this is tied to like your audition journey.
Hmm.
Because right now we're talking about it like there's so much wisdom and insight. And I'm just curious, so you had these tools that you were getting to know or starting to incorporate in your life in school. What part of, how do I want to say this? It's going to come out clunky, but like just because you know the things doesn't mean you
Mm,
can apply the things. I know
absolutely not.
it would be so great, right? Like I always tell people like if I could give you a pill to like never have perfectionism tendencies or something, I would.
Yeah.
But so it's like you can know things, but to truly start to inhabit them is its own experience. Can you share, like, to your own comfort level, a little bit about your actual audition experience
Mm,
and kind of like, yeah, just wherever you feel like starting there in terms of how this influenced things, how things went when it was maybe not happening,
mm.
things like that.
Yeah, I'm very open with, my audition experience. I've given some talks like in different organizations around Oslo, some student, schools and things like that. We have this young Philharmonic as well in Oslo Phil, and I've given a talk there, the PowerPoint and all that. But I've taken before I won my first audition, which was at the opera here in Oslo. I'd taken, I think, 17 auditions, which is just a number. It's just kind of data for me to
Mm-hmm.
have. Some people take one, some people take 100, 200, three, whatever. It's just numbers. But through those auditions, I kind of did a very similar thing until the last couple of auditions. And that similar thing was, despite me kind of learning this mindfulness through climbing and through sport and things like that and reading, I would still be this perfectionist in the practice room.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, I remember countless times me practicing the night before an audition, just shedding these excerpts as much as I could. And as a horn player, you kind of have a limited amount of playing you can do, and I would always exceed that. So the next day I'd be exhausted mentally and physically. So I kind of had the two auditions that I ended up winning were the opera here in Oslo, and then about 10 days later it was the audition in Oslo Philharmonic. And for those two auditions, I did completely different like preparations. And I
Mm.
decided basically that after I'd done an audition about a year earlier, which was again like a miserable prep time leading up to it and things like that, I basically decided I wanted to do something different.
Mm.
So the first thing I did is I met with my mental coach, Mindful Opus's own Joanna Patterson, and I ended up kind of figuring out the things that I needed to change in my own life leading up to the audition and what I was struggling with. It kind of gave me a clear window to look through in a way.
I
Yeah.
want to, I mean, you said amazing things. I wanted just for people who may be listening, what is it when you talk about perfectionism and aiming for that? What was it about looking at your art that way that was not helping you?
Kind of talking about it as a past tense thing, but it is still very much
Oh, we're all
something.
recovering perfectionists over
Yeah.
here. We need like a club.
And I yeah, exactly. And I think it's as with any like sport or craft or whatever, if you don't practice it, then you kind of fall back a little bit. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but in an audition sense, it was just never being really happy with how I was sounding, never thinking I was good enough. Uh,
Hmm.
if I'd listened back and there was like one little thing that happened in a concert or something, it would just be like, oh, I'm horrible, never gonna get a job, blah blah blah, this kind of thing. So very like just negative.
Yeah. Well, you just touched on something that I think is, well, I know because also science supports this, but perfectionism and your inner critic are like best friends.
Mm.
You don't really get a lot of positive reinforcement when you're looking for perfection.
Yeah.
And can you say a little bit more about like, yeah, that experience of living with your inner critic and like, I guess when did you really start to notice it? Was that something you noticed in college, or did it really just become more apparent like when you were knee deep in these auditions, like aiming for perfection and
I think it came more apparent in kind of the once I'd especially taken a few auditions
Mhm.
and not advanced, then I sort of started getting hyper focus, hyper critical, hyper, yeah, really embracing the perfectionism in a way.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's
Yeah.
so hard about auditions, right? It's like you take maybe a couple to start, and if you're lucky, the external world validates your experience. But that's just not the case for a lot of people. And you basically leaned into this idea of, okay, people are telling me I'm not good enough. That means I have to be more perfect.
Mm.
And you went
Yeah.
down that
Yeah.
path for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was that like? Was there a moment where you were like, this is not working? And if so, like what was that? What was that moment?
Yeah, I think that moment ultimately was because of COVID, and I had moved here in 2019, right before COVID, to be with my now wife. And so I'd moved here kind of starting fresh and was studying at the academy and had this internship position in Oslo Phil. And but then COVID happened and I didn't really get a chance to play. So I was just stuck in this
Mm.
little shed in the back of my parents-in-law's house and just practicing all the time and
And
just
like
like
literally a shed. I want to point
yeah.
out he's not just being like funny. I mean, he is funny, but it was an actual shed, which is like amazing to
Me
me.
and the hammers and the saws and the sawdust
Oh
and
my God. That
but
sounds like sorry, like I just got a vision of like the movie Saw that I've never seen, but like that would just be like not the most welcoming, like you're like
I managed to
practicing.
like I managed to kind of make it, I cleaned it up and it was incredibly nice of
Yeah, of
my parents-in-law
course. Of course.
to give me
No,
that
it's just
space. But
a funny image to be like practicing and you see a saw or
yeah,
something. Oh, but
maybe that ingrained some things in my head also.
anyway.
Um, but I think it was really during that time where it was like I had maybe a year before the next audition had been announced without doing anything except just trying to get better, which, I took full advantage of.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm happy that I like took all that time to practice. But then once the auditions came, I really felt I needed to get a job.
You felt that pressure.
I really felt that pressure. And I think that kind of drove this perfectionism even more. And the turning point was I did an audition in one of the orchestras in Norway and I submitted a tape and passed the tape round. And it was five or six of us invited to a live audition. And it was like 2 months between when we found out to when the audition was. And that was the one
Oh,
especially I remember I had like a 4 o'clock in the afternoon flight, and I was in the academy practicing from 9 in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then took a train to the airport, flew to the city, spent the night, and did the audition the next day. And I didn't advance. And I remember after that one, I was like, okay, my goal for the next audition is just that I don't want to be completely miserable leading up to it.
oh my gosh, my heart. I know, and I think that's a really common thing for people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's okay, so it's fascinating because as we talk more and more about like your 180 on
mm,
everything. You did happen to actually have external success that lined up
mm,
with this. I
mm,
also want to give the caveat that you didn't go into it with that assumption,
mm,
right?
mm-mm,
So
not at all.
I think that is so brave to know that in the moment what you're doing is not working
Mm,
and decide that what you're going to try next is for you and your well-being because you
mm,
don't want to be miserable in the process and almost like whatever happens with the results happens. I just
mm,
want to enjoy the process.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was also kind of freeing in a way where I was like, okay, I know I still want to work really hard, but there has to be a better way to do this.
Hmm.
And so leading up to the two auditions I ended up winning here in Oslo, I had met with another coach here, Norwegian coach. His name was Eddie, and he was or is the like head coach trainer of the Norwegian national mountain biking team. And
Love it.
I met him because he was the neighbor of my mother and father-in-law. And during COVID, he helped me fix my bicycle and kind of lived right down the street. And I'd see him riding his bike, and he was a super nice guy. So I met with him, and we talked for about 3 hours and just kind of came up with a game plan for those 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And in that game plan, it, he basically said that you have to be able to turn off from what you're doing, from practicing, from preparations by doing sport or reading or something. So I started rock climbing more regularly and kind of got back in that atmosphere and that vibe, and then kind of really training my mind to be able to not think about the music.
So the tools that you had explored in college kind of took I mean, I remember you did some mindfulness still like throughout, but
Mm-hmm.
it was not the most important. Like those tools were
Mm,
secondary. Your well-being was secondary to your seeking perfection. And you kind of went back to, okay, this is what I did a little bit before. Here's like a fresh perspective with someone new
mm-hmm.
and bringing back your own brilliance, which is I think this is like a key piece in like the work I do, but also what I see helps people is finding your own individual process and bringing
Absolutely.
out your own individual greatness. So it's not like he sat there and was like, do these 5 things, but it
Mm,
inspired you. He did, I mean, yeah, he obviously had some like specific things, but you made it like, this is what used to work. I'm going to
mm,
like re explore this with a new curiosity. I'm going to bring mindfulness back. I'm going to turn off, which is a funny concept because sometimes I find in meditation, there's this idea that there's so many different types of meditation, but that would take like a whole episode. But the idea of like, you're not supposed to turn off your mind. You're supposed to like just see thinking and then like come back to the breath, see thinking, come back to the breath.
mm,
And that's very helpful. And you need a specific tool that
mm.
truly can just, and that's great training for the tool, but you found the tool to actually make your brain turn off, I think. You
Yeah.
meditated a lot too, though, right? If I remember
I
correctly.
I had like a very regular meditation practice.
What was that practice, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I would wake up and meditate first thing in the morning, like for 10, 15 minutes. I have this like an app that I
Mhm.
use. And so I kind of saved a few different meditations that I really liked over the years. Mainly like body scan things, breath awareness, and one very short one that it was like 3 minutes. It's called 10 breaths that I could do anywhere.
That's such a good one. I
Um,
have that one saved too. It's Jeff
yeah,
Warren on YouTube. If anyone wants to go look, Jeff Warren, 10 breaths. It's so good.
yeah,
I think you sent it to me. I think.
probably.
Yeah.
I've been using it quite a lot and I still use it.
Yeah.
But I felt that like that was my sort of formal meditation. And throughout the day, if I wanted to just have a few minutes, then I would do this 10 breaths one, and then the evening I would do another one around 10 minutes
Yeah.
kind of
Wow.
before bed. So in total maybe half an hour a day spread out.
Yeah.
But I was practicing this sort of, I guess, more mindfulness thing more often than that, like this turning off
Yeah, can you say more about
idea.
that? Because I
Yeah.
think that's brilliant.
Yeah. So basically, the idea was that when you're practicing, you're practicing. When you're doing mock auditions, you're doing mock auditions and this and that. And what had tended to happen in the past is I would do these, mock auditions or practice, and then I'd leave the practice room and I just spinning the music in my head, and I'd try to go to sleep, and I would just hear the Wozzeck excerpt that was at the opera just like drilled in my head, which that is not an easy piece to fall asleep to. Um,
No.
um, and so this turning off, it happened a few times throughout the day. If I wanted to go for a walk, I would just tell myself like, okay, now I'm just gonna walk. I'm not gonna think about the music. And if it would come in my head, I would say, no, not now. So that was
Hmm.
my, and same with climbing. When I would climb, if I'd be there climbing and the music would start to come in my head, and I'd say, no, no, I'm not doing that now. I'm doing this. I'm climbing. And then also before bed, I would read. That was another thing that Eddie said I should do, is read,
Hmm.
like not a necessarily like a self-help book or something, but a fantasy book, a crime book, something to get you in a different space. So I read Lord of the Rings
Hmm.
just before bed, a few pages, and then I ended up using that on my audition days as well. I remember at the opera, I had my Lord of the Rings book, and between the second and third round, I think there was like 8 of us in the second round. We were waiting for results, and I was sitting there and I was just reading, and I felt no stress at all. Whereas in
Hmm.
previous auditions, I'd be like really stressed trying to like calm my nerves. You look around and some people like talking in auditions, some people have their headphones and are kind of jumping around. And I managed to just like completely kind of disregard the fact that I was at an audition. And I think that that was trained. That was because I had done it for weeks at that point, really like training
Wow.
myself that when I read, I wouldn't think about the in this case, the round I had just played. I would just get in my book and stay there until I heard that I advanced. And
Amazing.
yeah,
This is more like a hypothetical because there's no way of knowing, but I'm curious if you have a hunch if you would have had that same ability to turn off without a formal practice of meditation.
probably not,
Yeah.
because I think the perk of having that formal like sitting down practice is that you're forced to kind of come face to face with those thoughts that you have and develop the tools to be able to, you know, begin again is a very common
Uh,
meditation term, but to be able to start over and to get back to your breath in a non-judgmental way. And I think if my practicing that I had actually at this point probably done for years had really served me in being able to do that while I was reading and in
yeah.
that stressful audition situation.
It's fascinating to me because even hearing you talk about when you would tell yourself not now or when you would like turn off, when that
Mm,
happened, and I can see you, but I think it's also audible in your voice. There was no real harshness to it. It was like how you would train like a puppy or something.
mm,
Like when you're training your mind, are you being harsh with it? Are you saying like
mm,
not now, bad, or is it like nope, not now? And it
mm,
doesn't have to sound or feel corny, but I just noticed that. And I don't know if you have anything
mm.
to share about that particular piece of it. Like when you were turning off throughout the day or saying not now, how important was it that you not berate yourself for the music coming up in your head? Like you had
Mm.
this intention, the music's not going to come up, and then the music came up and you would say not now, but it wasn't. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I know what you're trying to say. I didn't really think so much about it. And maybe the reason for that is because I was doing something else that I really enjoyed. So I was kind of in a good mood
Oh,
regardless. I was like,
interesting.
at the rock climbing gym. So if I was like enjoying rock climbing and the music came in and I was like, wow, like be all,
Right.
sort of Gollum-esque. Uh,
I love that
Gollum,
your inner critic sounds like Gollum.
yeah, always. No, but I felt I hadn't really thought so much about that, but it kind of naturally took on this softer voice, I guess, which also ended up serving me in like auditions itself, in those auditions I took, and in the mock auditions, countless mock auditions that I did leading up to it, where I was able to kind of get back on track focusing if something happened, because I had practiced this, just coming right back to whatever I was doing.
Wow, because that happens a lot, right? Like you miss one thing and then it just, and that's perfection. You weren't seeking
Mm-hmm.
perfection, but perfection makes
Mm,
it so that you make one mistake and then you make like five more because you've tripwired at that point. You
exactly.
like spooked yourself. You're like, oh no, that wasn't supposed to happen. Oh no. So it's fascinating. If you weren't aiming for perfection, I mean, I have a formula for this, so you may just
Mm.
borrow my words. You're welcome to. But if you weren't aiming for perfection, what were you actually aiming for, like in your own experience?
In terms of the auditions, I think I was just aiming to do the best I could at that time. And but I was also in the mock auditions, it was more just trying to refine my plan. It wasn't even so much thinking about like whether the excerpts were really good or really bad or this and that, but it was more just like I think the perfectionism went away a little bit by something Eddie said, because I had brought this up to him also,
Hmm.
and he had said like embrace the phrase "this is good enough,"
Yes.
and I'd kind of heard that before a couple times, but I think in this sense, really playing, realizing that in sports, people have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's the same in our world as well, in the music world, that, people really have things that they're naturally super good at, and then people have things they really struggle with. And in an audition sense, you just kind of want to iron out as many of the wrinkles as you can until it's good enough.
That is something that I know clients of mine and maybe anyone listening would be like, but good enough is not going to work because someone else is going to have that better than me. And what I'm
Mm.
hearing you say is that in accepting, you weren't accepting that something had to be at like a let's say like bad level. I don't even want to say it that way. It's coming out clunky, but
Mm.
you were accepting your own human strengths and like you said, weaknesses
Mm.
and you would make those weaknesses as good as possible and
Mm-hmm.
then be like, that's fine. That's
Mm.
acceptable. Which meant that when you got on stage, you weren't having that expectation of it being above that. It was like, because I remember talking to you about this, and I think this is something people who are on the audition circuit could really take away. And maybe I'll let you just talk a little bit more about we're getting really nitty gritty in the audition process, so stay with us, people, because I think this is really fascinating. But specifically, two things I would love for you to talk about: this idea of like kind of tiering the excerpts,
Mm.
and also when you came up with like actually delivering on the excerpts.
Mm.
I want to talk a little bit about like how the model that we used accidentally influenced it. So just
Mm.
keep that in mind. We're going to get to that too. But first, why don't we talk about kind of this tiered idea that you were kind of exploring? I want to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, this the numbering system that I would use in these excerpts, I actually got from Jeff Nelson, one of my teachers in Bloomington. And basically the idea is that you have, I think in his teaching, it was like three. Number three is things you need to work on. Number two is things that are good, and number one is things that are like really kind of great, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, like they're
Um,
baked. They're like, yep,
they're
ready to go.
baked.
Yep, yep.
Exactly.
Great works too.
Um, for the opera excerpts, I added a number four because I had no idea what any of these excerpts were. Most of the time, I could like look at something and be like, it's a Brahms symphony, or it's a Mahler symphony, it's an excerpt in a Mahler symphony, that kind of thing. And I just have to learn it. But this, I had no idea what 16 out of the 18 of these excerpts on this list were.
Wow.
So I just, every single one was number four. And by the end of my preparations, things, moved up and up and up and up and up, or I guess
Yeah.
down, until at the end it was primarily ones and twos. And it wasn't, in the past, I tried to get everything to a one, but this
Yeah.
kind of good enough made it so I had things that were twos that I knew I could deliver on, that were, yeah, good enough. And then the ones were things that I really felt I could nail. And then I even wrote on like two or three excerpts on both the opera and Oslo Phil list. I wrote own, OW, like I
Mm,
own these ones. And that was because I felt I could do something, like I could show my strength in
mm-hmm.
those. I could really kind of create something that I thought was special. Whether they thought it was special or not is a different, that's out of my control. But I thought it was
Yeah.
unique and special. And
Oh,
then the
it's
whole
so good.
process, it's kind of like a game of just trying to get the number four to a three and the number three to a two. And then sometimes, number two goes back to a three and you kind of work with it that way. It's just a way of structuring how you practice.
It's
And
brilliant. Yeah.
I would always make sure to play some of the ones I was really good at, not just practice the ones I'm bad at, but also play some number ones and number twos.
Well, so many things in that I could just keep going down. But what I want our auditioners or anyone who really sees themselves in what you're saying to truly take away from is that it was you were not seeking perfection
Mm,
in this, and you were leading with curiosity and problem solving,
mm,
not shame that it's not there yet.
mm,
A missed note was just a missed note. It didn't make
mhm.
you a bad person. And how many times have we all been in the practice room where we miss something and we don't even realize it, but we're completely invalidating ourselves as human
Mm,
beings.
absolutely.
Our
Yeah.
value to as, worthiness of love and belonging is so closely tied to our art.
Mm,
And you just allowed for that to be a non-negotiable, even in how you were saying like, and I made sure to play things that, were one still to remind myself. That's
mm,
just showing the layered approach to your work.
mm,
And there was self-compassion in that. There was non-judgment. It's just amazing to hear you talk about it and to see how it really helped you deliver on the day, that confidence.
mm,
Because you can be more confident. When you're knowing that you're not going to shoot 100%, you're good enough is like, I don't know how you'd rank it on a percentage, but let's just say like, I don't know, 90 or 85 or something.
mhm.
Like you're shooting for 85%. So that's good enough.
I was always like a B student. So I think
I mean, look, if you want everything in
80
a
to
90,
85
you want to
is
put it
fine
on
with me.
90, that's fine by me too. Always a B student. Okay, one other like just because I think this will be very helpful. In your process, which truly became yours, you're piecemealing things from a lot of different people, but you're owning it yourself. You didn't
Mm,
go to one person and say, how do I do this? You're borrowing from your sports coach. You're borrowing from your college horn teacher. Obviously, some of our work seeped in there as well. And I think what's interesting is I don't know if we knew this while you were doing it, but the way that you actually approached nailing these excerpts was based off of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is, I use that a model based on cognitive behavioral science in my coaching. And the
mm,
nutshell version of that for you listeners is this idea that you start with a neutral circumstance in your life, just something that's factual, like the weather or whatever. And that circumstance, in this scenario, that circumstance would be an excerpt.
mhm,
You have a particular thought about that excerpt.
mhm,
That thought creates an embodied feeling about that excerpt. And that embodied feeling externalizes as a behavior.
mhm.
I have never seen someone do what you did. And you didn't use this exact thing, but can you share a little bit about the actual formula for each excerpt that
Mhm.
that came out of your own brilliance?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I basically took a little snippet from our father, who says, in auditions and excerpts, you want to have these kind of little presents. Each excerpt has a little box,
Mm-hmm.
and you take out the box for, the Beethoven 7 or something, and you open the lid and you take out whatever's inside the box to play your excerpt, and then you put the things back in the box, you close the box, you put the box away. So I actually drew on all of my excerpts in like the top or bottom corner a little box and wrote some things inside the box. Those things were that the first thing I wrote was like a story. I really wanted each excerpt to have like a very clear story or character. Beethoven 7 in this example was someone riding a horse, like a through a meadow, like very, exciting, that kind of thing. And then that story
Which is a
would
thought,
lead,
right?
which is a thought,
Yeah.
would lead to a feeling. So I just said exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So the story of the person riding in the meadow with the sun shining and this and that would lead to this feeling of excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing in that box was something just like a small, like technical thing that I would do, kind of a trick, for lack of a better word. So if it was one fingering that I would do maybe differently than what's kind of normal, then that was my trick. Or if it was to take an extra breath, or to approach the beginning mentally in a certain way, that was kind of my trick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I would go through that and then find my tempo, and then I would kind of play along with the recording that's in my head.
Yes. And didn't you write, like, you literally wrote the three, if I remember, like in
Yeah,
different colors too. So you had
yeah,
like a color for your story, and beneath that, which is the thought, again, if you're following along, below that you had the feeling in a different color. And below
hmm
that you had your actions.
hmm yeah,
And it
exactly.
was, I just think this is so brilliant because it was a way of like, I don't want to use the word guarantee, but it's the only word that's coming to my mind, or at least really hedging your bets that you
Mm,
would deliver,
mm,
which is truly
yeah,
what people are working for, right?
mm,
And not deliver in the perfectionistic sense, but just in the factual sense. If I think
mm,
this way and I feel this way, I'm really hedging my bets that this is how this is going to externalize.
mm.
So that thought, yeah.
A good like kind of sports image again is like a basketball player shooting a free throw. They'll bounce it. Every single one has a different way they approach doing their free throw. Some just catch and shoot. Some
Hmm.
bounce three times on their right, pass it to their left, bounce twice, put it around the back, toss it up, spin it, bounce it off their head, whatever, and then shoot it.
That's me.
Uh, but whatever they do, they've kind of structured it in a way so it's routine. And this way of working, I found, not only helped create a sense of routine for each audition, like a checklist in a way, but also made it just much more fun to learn these excerpts, to learn these pieces, to have like clear stories that you're trying to portray, and like much more so than just trying to play the correct note at the right time in the right way and this and that, and but more of this personalized way of approaching it.
Yeah. It's so brilliant. And I think anyone who's on that audition circuit right now has a lot of notes and a lot of takeaways from today that they can apply. If this is you, go back and listen, take notes because there's a lot of gold in here. And you would say, like, tailor it to your own version, right? That's,
Absolutely. I mean, all the audition stuff that I have kind of helped people with since having these successes a few years ago, I've always started off saying, tailor it to yourself. If none of
mm-hmm.
it would just, if you want to try it, tweak it, take something away, add something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. You've just shared an incredible amount about your own struggles and your own truly like a 180 experience on your audition circuit. And you happen to have won two auditions back to back, which probably felt incredible and relieving. And I know it did. It relieved so
Mm.
much pressure. And now you've been at the job in Oslo for how long? 2 years? How long have you been there?
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
20,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, time flies.
October 22 is when I won.
So, one thing that I think you also have so much wisdom to share about is the idea of well being today when you have the job and
Mm.
creating a sense of balance, of choice, of not just like chasing something that doesn't align. I don't really know exactly where I want to start, but how did this approach of kind of like mindfulness through the audition and really not having your own identity staked on that audition, how has that translated to you have the job now? Because I
Mm.
know that you don't look, you appreciate the job. It's a fantastic job. And yet your whole identity isn't tied to that, which is a big tenet of your well-being, right?
Mm.
Your
Mhm.
well-being is not just tied to your art. So how, yeah, can you say a little bit more, I guess, about how you approach life today in that sense?
Mm. I mean, it's definitely a constant learning process, constant
Yeah. Yeah.
evaluating and changing things and being just honest. And I still consider myself quite fresh on the job. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I often ask my colleagues for, I'm really lucky to be surrounded by so many nice and supportive people in my section. And I talk to them about how it is to have been on the job for, 30 years and try to kind of take some of the teachings that, the learning that they've had. But I continue to like meditate. I try to do even if it's this 10 breaths.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I try to do that before concerts. It doesn't take long, so I can do it when I walk from my locker to the stage and I've sort of learned that I've learned more and more how to kind of get over mistakes
Mm-hmm.
uh, in the performance, especially, and then afterwards, which was very difficult. And
I remember.
learning, I'm still very much learning how to do that. But one thing that like I've started to really notice is that if I miss, or it happens when I miss something, if I'm like tentative in whatever I'm playing, and the reason I've missed it is out of some fear or like tenseness or that kind of thing, I'm much more naturally upset with myself than if I've missed it just going for it. Uh,
Mm.
so I've kind of started to incorporate this like mantra in a way that of just trying to really be confident on the job and go for things and yeah, kind of trust that I will be fine at the end of the concert regardless.
Yeah. Well, and I remember, I mean, we've coached sort of sporadically
Mm-hmm.
as not as needed, but just like if you're like, hi, do you have like 20 minutes? And there was a particularly powerful one that, or I don't, not the session itself, but like a powerful moment for you when it was like, I'm into that perfection thing again. And we really kind of regrounded you into
Mm,
excellence over perfection,
mm,
right? The concept
yeah,
of you can, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about it already, but like, is that something that helps you on stage still as a reminder?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I thought about it this last week. We were
Mm,
playing a Bruckner symphony with Blomstedt, and I had this. At this point, I've done so much. We've done a lot of work where I kind of feel the physical response to being in that perfection mindset, and then I can kind of call it out and go from that perfectionism mindset to that growth or excellence
hmm
mindset. But I remember the exact situation that you're talking about. It was one of my trial weeks. I remember. I think it was my last trial week,
Hmm.
and it was Brahms double and Brahms one. And I remember like the Tuesday rehearsal, and I knew there was a jury meeting at the end of the week. And the Tuesday rehearsal, I was so tense and I was so like nervous and kind of fearful and not wanting to make mistakes. And you know, the rehearsal just was not nearly as I didn't go nearly as I wanted it to go. And I texted you like, "Do you have time for a session?" And then
Always.
when Wednesday, I came to work with a fresh mind, and it was like a just completely different experience.
It's all in how you relate to that pressure too, right?
Hmm.
Because now you
Hmm.
have the job, and I know you also spend time when you're not on the job, you're not thinking about it all the time, which I want to
Mm,
explore a little bit with you too. But it's not like the pressure goes away, but
mm,
it sounds like you are continually changing your relationship to that pressure and
mm,
normalizing it, making sure your value, like your value as a human is not tied to this note. Like that's such a
hmm,
constant reminder, I think, for a lot of people. And
mm,
that's the work, right? It's just, do the best you can. And also, like, I love that you said, I'll be more pissed at myself if I don't go for it. Or,
hmm.
yeah, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So, when you think of it that way, like you've had this experience as in school, in your auditions, and now like you have the job. There is a thread there that I don't want people to be like disheartened by because it's actually very freeing to know that you don't ever have to just have it all figured out.
I certainly don't.
It's it's actually much more about being kind to yourself
Mm,
in those moments, knowing what you need, being curious, not beating yourself up that you're once again dealing with the pressure and the perfection and just continually like relating to it differently.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
when you like what do you do outside of the job that's really fun? We've talked about rock climbing, but like here you are now today. Let's say you have a rehearsal and now that you see yourself as like a whole person, not just a musician, like how has this affected your day to day?
That's a good question. I mean, I try to just like do something I enjoy every day, whether it's, some sort of activity or going out on walks or just reading or something. I've started reading much more in the last kind of few months, especially reading like sort of science fiction books or historical fiction, that kind of thing. But yeah, and we have an apartment, so we've been buying a lot of furniture and trying to get the place really homey. I like going on walks. I like hanging out with my in-laws and my nieces, and of course my wonderful wife. And
She's the best. We love
she's the
Veronica.
best.
So you've really landed in a place where you enjoy the job. It brings you, stability and happiness, and you don't hinge everything on it.
Yeah,
I
and
think that's very important.
yeah, I also have, because of that, I think I've grown to really enjoy like getting better on the instrument itself, like pushing
Mm.
myself. I have a amazing new colleague. This is his second full season now, our co-principal horn, Osbjorn, and we practice together all the time, pushing each other's limits, bouncing ideas off of each other, nerding out a little bit on the instrument away from the job. Uh,
Wow.
on the instrument, I also like to play jazz. I have some like Oscar Peterson records that I just put on and I improvise to. And so to do things on your instrument that are away from your job also, I think is quite freeing on the job. Uh,
Yes. I don't know how I forgot that you're also an amazing jazz horn player,
I don't know
which is
about
just like,
that, but
I think you're amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of amazing, you are amazing. This has been so fun. I want to try ending with some rapid fires. I don't know if this will be
Whoa.
every episode, but pew, 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 pew.
Cool. Exciting.
Yeah. So what are you reading right now?
Oh, I have 50 pages left
Is this
of
the book?
this. This is the book of
You guys, this is the biggest book I've ever seen. Like, how many pages is? I feel like it's like 1,000. Maybe it's not quite
it's
1,000.
it's 858.
Oh my God.
But
Bless you.
there's no breaks in between the chapters. So it's just like one spaced in
Wow.
extra space. So it's a big book.
Okay.
It's called Lonesome Dove. It's like an epic Western book. Highly recommend it if you're into those kind of
Awesome.
vast world things.
What podcast are you listening to?
I bounce between a bunch of different things. I will be listening to the Mindful Opus podcast.
Thank you.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
You're
And
so ridiculous. My God.
I listen to like BBC News sometimes. I know it's kind of boring, but try to stay a little bit updated. I've found since I've gotten more into reading, I found like a books podcast. It's called Books. And I listen to
I
the
don't know.
10% Happier podcast quite often
Oh,
also.
I love that we both still listen to that one. Yeah, that's in my library. What music are you listening to? What's like your go-to song?
In the spirit of this book I'm reading, I've been listening to a lot of country music.
Love
So
this.
Coulter Wall is he's a Canadian country singer. And I listen to a lot of jazz. I listen to Led Zeppelin quite a lot. That's probably my most listened to would be Led Zeppelin.
Awesome.
Mhm.
What's your favorite meal right now? Or maybe not even right now. Like,
Mm,
what's your favorite meal?
just in
Just,
general.
can you
I
pick
think
one?
I mean the weather changes so much here that I think it depends
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
year. Yesterday I really craved sushi, so I always think I can eat like a big thing of sushi, but I also love like on a cold day like a nice big bowl of ramen or something like that.
Nice. I thought you were gonna say mom's peas and onions, but that's okay.
Oh,
That's
that one
okay.
actually mom's eggs. We can throw
Mom's
that one
eggs
out there
too.
also.
Oh my
Those are
gosh.
good.
Anything mom cooks.
Mhm.
Um, what's a mantra or phrase you come back to often?
There's a few on the job that I come to quite a lot. There's one that's a quote from Why the Critics Aren't the Ones Who Count, which is
Hmm.
a YouTube video with Brene Brown. And that one is If courage is my value, I have to do this. I like that one.
So good.
Yeah, that's when and also if I'm not going to enjoy it, then what's the point? I like that
Oh
one.
my gosh. That's both gold for sure. And finally, what's one small thing that instantly lifts your mood?
Ooh, one small thing that instantly lifts my mood. Puppies. They're small. I
Kitten?
love puppies. Yeah. A coffee always lifts my mood.
Yes. Love
I,
it.
I I'll throw that one out there.
Aw. Well, seeing your face always lifts my mood 100% of the
Oh,
time. I'm so deeply grateful that you came on. Thank you so, so much. This has been the most fun I could have possibly had for my very first interview. And I will be seeing you very shortly. Yeah,
it's
thank you.
thank you for having me and yeah, you're the best. People should again like, comment, and
I
subscribe to
was
Mindful Opus Podcast.
And we're going to end there. Thanks for listening to the Mindful Opus podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider adding the show to your library, write a blurb in the review section, or share it with someone in your circle. For more about my work, you can find me on Instagram at mindfulopus or my website, mindfulopus.com. And while you're there, don't forget to grab that free well-being resource waiting for you. Until next time, my fellow opus creator, keep creating the life you want, one opus at a time.